From fabulous Las Vegas, Nevada, this is Pod Therapy. Real people, real problems, and real therapists. If you have any questions you'd like to ask or advice you'd like to give, come on over to podtherapy.net and join the conversation. Good news! Insurance is now covering the cost of treatment for Trump derangement syndrome. Oh wait, that's not a thing. And now, broadcasting from Level 9 Studios, that guy is Dr. Jim Jobin. I'm Nick Tangeman. Time for some Pod Therapy.
You know, it's funny. There was another therapist that's actually in Oregon, and I follow him on LinkedIn, and he was saying, you know, it'd be great is if therapists would start podcasts. And I was like, okay, you know, like I saw, like he posted this big thing about like ideas for possible podcasts done by therapists, and he had 20 of them, and like all like it's funny because all 20 we've talked about, but one of them was a weekly show where you diagnose the newest mental illness of Donald Trump. I was like, wow,
who's got that kind of time?
Yeah. Yeah, I was like, I don't know how I feel about this diagnosing the president thing, but
so this guy didn't know that we had a podcast.
Yeah, I don't think.
And he's from where?
Oregon. Yeah.
Oregon. Okay,
yeah.
So we're
not big in Oregon.
We have not hit the Pacific Northwest yet.
That's right. Yeah. Also, most people aren't aware that we have a podcast.
I don't know if that's true.
Yeah, I don't know if the president knows. I mean, you know, Donald, if you're listening,
he's a listener.
Yeah, you know, what was that? Noviet, comrade? Is that how you say it?
Privyet.
Privyet, comrade. Yeah, you know what we're talking about. But yeah, so we are deep into the summer, and there's lots of new stuff coming out, and there's huge new research that just hit the headlines that's coming out with a new book. But I thought that we would introduce that today, and it's all about sexual fantasies, Nick.
Why not?
Why not? So sex fantasies. So Dr. Justin Lemiller, he's written several books, but he just released new research where he polled thousands of Americans, and what he came to was he figured out the top 7 sexual fantasies of the average American citizen. Isn't that interesting? The top 7 sexual fantasies. So, yeah, we're going to run through those David Letterman style, and we will list them out from 7th all the way to 1st. But before we do, let's all take a second to reflect on what our own sexual fantasies are. Maybe not say them out loud, but right now, just think to yourself, what are the top 2 things that I sexually fantasize about? Get those in your mind, because we're going to put that list out here in a second. You can find out if you are normal. But Nick, you've already taken a look at the list, and before we even read it out, let me ask you this. Is your sexual fantasy on the list?
Which one?
Let's say this. Of your top 10, when you look at this list and you were going through it, without telling us what it is, did you notice that yours is on the list?
Yes.
Ah, you dirty, dirty dog. Yeah, that's awesome. So
and
you're
Jim?
A pervert. Yeah, no, it's weird. Your name didn't appear on this list, so I was like, oh, Nick's not on here, so I guess mine is unfulfilled so far, Nick.
Yeah.
No, but this most Americans fall into one of these 7 categories. And,
I'm going to guess multiple.
You think so? Yeah.
I think so.
I don't think people
later,
have just one.
Yeah.
But yeah, some of it feels like it would play well together.
Yeah.
I think if you rounded up all 7 of these and did it in one night, then we'd need Dr. Victoria Hartman to come back on.
I think with a little motivation, you can get all 7 of these done at once.
Oh my gosh! So if you're playing at home, go ahead and get your bingo card ready. As we go. So go ahead and write down all the sexual things you've done in bingo squares, and we're going to read out these 7. And if you get bingo, you yell it out. But let's start at the top. So make believe drum roll. The 7th most popular sexual fantasy in America was homoerotic sex. So that would be experimenting with the same gender. And what was interesting about that was not only, okay, so that first off, that I think is profound to realize that is the 7th most popular sexual fantasy in America, because there's a lot of people who still just think that that's this outlier thing.
Right.
Remember in the DSM-3, it was a diagnosed mental illness.
Right.
Was homoerotic desire. Yeah. It's the 7th most popular sexual fantasy in the country. Like, it's not a mental illness, you know, and so there's still people out there that don't understand, you know, homoeroticism, that still are very fearful of it. I think that argument right there shows you a slam dunk. It's the 7th most popular form of sexual fantasy in the nation. Right. And another interesting side note was that the data said 2/3 of women indicate that they have had that sexual fantasy, and 1/3 of men have said that they have that sexual fantasy. Isn't that fascinating?
That's interesting. Okay.
And that feels like the divide that I would think it is, right? Because like, you know who stares at women more often than men? Women. My wife is like very critical, and like, you know, it's like, it's really like she notices women more than I do, and like, it doesn't seem like a far cry that the average American woman would say, yeah, I'd hit that, you know, like, because they're already like admiring women all the time and like thinking about them and like, you know, appreciating their appearance. So it doesn't seem like a far cry for me.
Yeah. No, I don't know if that means that there's sexual desire though, because I'm critical of men just because true. I'm you know, getting into fitness,
fashion,
and fashion,
right.
and so kind of looking at, you know, what people are choosing to wear, and like, oh wow, that I wish I had shoulders like that, or you know, look at those calves. You know, but that doesn't necessarily mean that I. Well, that in that case, that would be.
So wait, you don't? Because everything you just said sounds like it's really not a far cry.
You know what? I think I'm losing that argument.
I think to myself. Yeah. So Nick is reaching for his bingo dauber, and he is indicating number 7 is check. So number 7. So it's interesting. So if you've ever had that fantasy in the back of your mind, or if you've ever thought, man, you know, I could see where people would get interested in this, you are not alone. That's the 7th most popular sexual fantasy in the nation, Nick.
Mm-hmm. Crazy. Okay, and then number 6, passionate sex, romantic with deep emotional connection.
So like the candles and champagne kind of sex. That's the 6th most. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah, because when we're talking about this, before I had actually looked at the list, that was the one that surprised me, because everything else I was thinking like, oh, there's going to be some weird, freaky stuff in here. Yeah. And then this one's like, oh, sex with passion.
Isn't that interesting? People fantasize about that.
That's not like that's not a normal thing.
But in fairness, I mean, you think about it, you know, like passionate, make love kind of sex, you know, candles, champagne, the works, it's a hotel room, there's flower petals on the bed. That really does fit in like a mental box of like a fantasy, right? Like there's a lot of female erotic novels that's what it would describe. Right.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, and I think a lot of men too, they might not necessarily, I mean, that's not true. I know a lot of men that would say, you know, if you got to wish from a genie for a sexual experience, there's a lot of men that would probably say, yeah, I would like passion, you know, emotion, romance, and you know, it's saxophone guy playing in the background. Yeah, candles and chandeliers and all sorts of exciting things. So
bearskin rug.
Yeah, it's funny because as I was going through this list, I was thinking, is there a song currently popular in the nation that pretty much captures each one of these?
Oh, that would have been a fun game.
It's a fun game because like definitely you could find something in each one, right? Like number 7, you know, the homoerotic sex, you'd probably look for like a Sam Smith song, like, you know, Stay With Me.
Or Katy Perry, I Kissed a Girl.
I Kissed a Girl and I liked it. Oh, good job, Nick.
Now that's going back a few years.
It is. Yeah, it's reaching back.
Relevant.
But I just think it counts. Passionate sex.
Marvin Gaye.
Marvin Gaye.
Yeah,
okay.
Kind of Marvin Gaye or something.
Yeah,
like
there's a whole bunch though, right?
Yeah.
You know, Barry Manilow songs, there's a whole bunch of those. But even right now, there's Bruno Mars, and he has that song about strawberry champagne or something like that, and he's like, you know, singing. The whole song captures the scene of like making love by the fire and champagne and diamonds and like this slow mix kind of thing. So interesting. That's number 6. The 6th most popular fantasy in America, passionate romantic sex. That's what people are fantasizing about. So if we haven't hit yours yet, that's okay. You're just a little bit more freaky than the average person. Don't be shamed. So here we are in number 5, the 5th most popular sexual fantasy in America is polyamory sex. So polyamory sex is like swinging and partner swapping or other non-monogamous sex. Now, it's important to note here that in the research, he indicates polyamory does not include like just random. It's not like orgy or hookup. It's basically being in a coupled relationship and then fantasizing about allowing somebody into that relationship, right? So swinging relationship or partner swapping, that kind of thing. But basically breaking the norm of what it means to be monogamous and inviting somebody into the experience. So that's pretty wild stuff, man.
Yeah.
I can think of a lot of movies that have tried to capture that idea.
Yeah. What would be the song for that one?
Oh my gosh. I don't even know. Somebody's going to tweet. Sure. Somebody's going to tweet us and go, it's this one, dummy.
Right.
You know, but it's interesting because like that, you think about it, And a lot of people, one of the big fears in America is cheating, right? It's like, oh man, I don't want to be cheated on. And yet the fifth most popular fantasy is consensual cheating. And that's what's interesting about it, is it's not like people are fantasizing about somebody else. They're fantasizing about them and their spouse participating in this agreement that they're going to meet up with another couple, switch rooms, go nuts. Isn't that the old joke? It's like it was like a fishbowl and everybody puts their keys in the fishbowl.
Yeah.
Like you just pull out the keys, like whoever's keys you got, that's who you're with tonight.
Yeah. And I don't think that's a new thing. I think it's becoming a little bit more mainstream. People are more likely to talk about it.
Oh yeah. There's like entire websites now that are like the equivalent of like eHarmony, but they're just for couples.
Right.
To like go on and find other partners that they're going to swap with or whatever. There's like swap retreats. I remember seeing something on the news. It was like there's like a swap cruise that's out there. It's like everybody there agrees that this is what they're there for. Like that's fascinating, man.
Yeah,
so I don't know.
And we've had people write into the show with questions about this.
Yeah.
We've answered, I don't remember what episode that was, but it can be done. And there are people who do it, and they have made it work.
Right.
But it can be very, very difficult.
Yeah.
We've had one writer write in, and I remember we were on the same page, like, okay, there are couples who can do it. This is not one of them.
You're not the guy. Yeah, you're already struggling with it.
This is not for everybody.
It's funny because I actually have a friend in the community who is actually a therapist. I won't say her name, but she's poly, and her husband's aware of it, and he consents to it. He is not. He's monogamous, and so he says, "Hey, I'm only interested in you. I only want to be with you." But she's communicated that she is attracted to other people, and she would like to be able to have third-party relationships. So she essentially has one or two boyfriends, and he's completely aware of it. They talk about it. He's, okay with it. But she, makes time to go on vacation with those guys and do her own thing. And, she's completely open with discussing it. And when she tells about this kind of stuff, which she shared with, multiple people, I remember the first time I heard her talk about it, I was like, oh my gosh, like, so he's completely fine with it. She's like, not always. He's still a human. Yeah. Like he still has his breakdowns, and it actually got to a point where it was hard for them, and they broke up for a little while over it. But apparently it was able to be mended. So it's becoming increasingly common, and a lot of people that are into it, they're very open and honest about it, and it's an interesting thing too. So if you have ever had that fantasy, then you are among the 7 most popular fantasies in America, but only the 5th. So the next one is the 4th most interesting sexual fantasy.
And that would be taboo or forbidden sex. So fetishes, role plays, voyeurism.
Yeah. So when we think about fetishes, right, that's like a broad word. Fetish, like what is that? It could be a lot of different things. But what this research was unpacking was it's taboo stuff. So it's like the role play of the police officer with the person they're arresting, or the doctor and the patient, or whatever mix-up that is. A lot of people have a sexual fantasy, and this is becoming increasingly popular. We talked about this in another episode about step incest, but a very popular fantasy that's showing up is the sexual fantasy of sleeping with a step sibling or a step parent or something like that, which immediately you hear about and go, you kind of cringe, like, a step parent? Like, that's not cool. But interestingly, the porn industry releases every year the top search terms for different.
I heard about this.
Yep, it's every year they release a spreadsheet, and it's the top search terms in every country, and then they break it down by state. And increasingly, one of the patterns that I saw in the data was stepmother or stepfather was like an increasing search term that they were seeing in the patterns. So it doesn't surprise me that the 4th most popular fantasy is taboo or forbidden sex that by the nature of the two people participating or the situation, it is probably not what would be considered good. But it also includes things like role plays, where like you and your spouse act out a scene. But voyeurism is another interesting thing. A lot of people don't know what voyeurism is.
Voyeurism would be watching. Right? Or wait, I always get voyeurism confused with the other one. One is watching and one is displaying.
Oh, exhibitionism.
Exhibitionism.
Yeah.
So exhibitionism is that thrill of having sex with an audience, people watching.
And that's
Voyeurism
actually part of this too.
Somebody.
That's part of this too. So taboo or forbidden sex, voyeurism is being able to watch other people have sex, but not necessarily participate. And exhibitionism is to be seen by others. And that